Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Here. Here.
Here.
Present.
Here.
Here.
Present. Here. 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 Present.
Here. Thank you, ma'am. Item number 3, receive report from staff with reference to drainage master planning projects, East McNeese Street Subbasin and English Bayou Subbasin. Mr. Wainwright.
Thank you. Just wanted to, tonight we want to bring you all an update. We have concluded 2 more major pieces of the puzzle as far as our basin studies. For all intentional purposes, it's the first one tonight. We actually have both of our consulting firms here tonight to give you rundowns on their particular basins, but C.H. Fenstermaker is going to be the first group up. They were handling the East McNeese Street Basin. This is just south of the Chenault area, actually. Then we'll follow that up with URS that handled a basin that's what we kind of call the Blue Settlement area. So with that, we've got some PowerPoints for you, and I'll let them take the show over, and at the end we'll take any questions you might have. All right, go ahead.
I'm John Orsino, and I'm with Fenstermaker and Associates out of Lafayette. And as Alan said, we were in charge of doing the East McNeese Street Basin Stormwater Master Plan. Part of the master plan was for us to develop models. Some of the parish could use a working tool that they can use every day to look at alternatives as well as look at ways of improving their drainage and also future development. Also work with them on creating a maintenance plan, an inspection plan, and also with public involvement and acquiring funds. This, as Alan said, is the area that we studied. We call it the East McNeese Street Basin. The red lines you're looking at were modeled by the Corps, and we went in and we modeled the blue streams. The models were calibrated for the October 2009 storm event. The parish has been collecting data, and they were really quick that when the storm happened, they actually went out and picked up high water marks as well as stage data. And this was used for us to calibrate the models to make sure that the results we were getting were accurate. And what we ended up getting is, this is kind of what we do, is once we model it, we can actually see what's the extent of flooding. And that's what this map shows for the October 2009 storm event, which primarily focused more or less on the airport area. This is the results and what we got. We also took the models and we compared them to the existing FEMA maps that are used for insurance. And these maps that were developed based on models from the early 80s. So, I mean, with advances in technology, things change, also development. We saw some variations in different areas that were not in flood zones and actually should be. So it is a recommendation that the parish work to actually getting these maps updated, because that's really important. We also used the models to try and address problem areas. We looked at everything from channel cleanings, channel modifications, such as concrete lining channels. We also looked at putting regional detention ponds, some 30-acre ponds in different areas that really have a lot of drainage issues. And we also looked at analyzing the impacts of future development and what the results would be in a couple of years if things are not remediated. And this is a list of the different alternatives we ran. Each of these alternatives were compared. We looked at like how much we could reduce drainage area, how much used to flood. If we do this alternative, how much floods now. We also looked at how many properties we could save, take out of flood zones. I mean, that's important. If you're in a flood zone now, you have to buy your flood insurance. You want to know if I can get taken out of that flood zone. That's an important thing to people, as well as cost. How much will it cost to actually implement these different alternatives? Here's a list of just a cost breakdown. We gave out the executive summary. They have a little bit more detail that goes into these. But alternative one is a cleaning alternative. There's 70 miles of channel. It's expensive to clean. but it's one of the things that actually produces the best results. And also changing out structures that are inadequate. So alternative 1 and 4 are the two that we actually recommend the most. So we did a combination run, which is alternative 4-1, which is the 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth bar. Also part of the master plan, we've been working with the parish to look at best management practices in future developments, as well as getting the public involved. Y'all have a really good public involvement program already. Updating your webpage, and the litter program here is really good. We're also working at establishing maintenance plans and inspection plans. These are really important to, once you fix the problem, you want to make sure that you can maintain it and that it doesn't go back to the way it was. And also acquiring funds. We've been working with other wards and other districts at acquiring money through FEMA, statewide flood protection program. Other ways of paying for these are your local funds, capital outlay. There's different places to reach out, and we're just trying to lend a hand and get the money to get these actual projects going. The benefit of doing this is, one, you can actually lower insurance rates. Another thing is your property values can go up if you can get people out of flood zones. These are ways of, once implementing these different alternatives, which you can see. And finally, our recommendations. It's important to enforce your ordinance, and then also develop and maintain that maintenance and inspection plan. Establish your monitoring plan, which has already began. It's very important to continue this. Also, implementing public involvement and awareness. Pursue the funding and grants. And then implement the drainage alternatives based on our action plan, which is listed in the executive summary. And then also additional calibration is always important. Fine-tuning of the models. This is something it carries on forever. So you need to, as things develop, you got to make these improvements. So it's always important. And submitting the maps to FEMA and using the models for your day-to-day needs. So, and that's it. So, thank you.
Before we move over to the URS presentation, I want to remind y'all or let you know I have full copies of these presentations I'll be sending out tomorrow so that you'll have them. It's a little hard to see. Also, we can come back, and if there's any questions after you've had a week or so to look at that next week, I'll be happy to answer those. All this is, again, just going to come together in what will be a final master plan study. And while I know it's hard and there's a lot of numbers, especially the drawers that represent some of these basins, as we've worked through the process and had stakeholder meetings, have had opportunities to see these documents and these projects on a specific level. But we will be getting out the actual copies to you very soon. So with that, URS, Angela, or if y'all have any questions for Fenstermaker in that area around the East McNeese Street, we can do that now, or otherwise we can move to the Le Bleu settlement area. All right.
Thank you.
It may take just a second to transfer the computer.
Good afternoon. My name is Andrew Cow. I'm with U.S., the Houston office. I'm here also with one of our staff, John Schneider, from the Baton Rouge office, and we thank you. And we, with our Lake Charles office, we all work on this English Bayou Stormwater Master Plan project. And so the project objectives and also the project goals and tasks are about similar to what has been presented. So I will not, I think, stay on this too long. So we do similar things, hydrologic and hydraulic models, and identify the flood-prone areas, and then also develop alternatives for capital improvement plans. And I will discuss more about the project area. That area, the English Bayou area, is generally east of Lake Charles and goes all the way to Iowa. And the system that we look at are the Bayou Axine system, the Canna Gully system, the upper part of English Bayou, the Antoine Gully area, and the Coon Gully area. And so after doing the analysis of the existing conditions, this is a map showing what is the existing conditions. And the map is a little bit, I think, unclear because it's kind of overlay on the aerials, but just to have a good idea about what's going on. You have the orange color is the 10-year flood event that the study came up with. And then on top of that, you have generally the area that is blue shading, and those are the FEMA floodplain areas. So in general, in the Bayou Axine area, you have our 10-year event results that kind of track relatively well the FEMA areas. And we have also in that map some of the areas that we identified that are the issues that you have. So mostly in the English Bayou area, you have most of the problems come from backwaters. And you have backwater effects in the Bayou Axine area. And then you have a smaller structural capacity problems. And this is the English Bayou area. And in the English Bayou area, you have also the same issues, backwater problems on the downstream end. And then you have also several structural capacity problems. And then you have also a relatively low areas that we can see there in the orange area that extend all the way to the city of Iowa. This is the area of Coon Gully, and Coon Gully, as you know, I think is at the confluence of Kankashu River and English Bayou. So the whole area is inside of the 100-year floodplain. And the 10-year event that we have show that actually you have a lot of those backwater issues. And then you also have the problems coming from a water storage area, a small ponding area that you have in one of those laterals. And also you have several areas that they don't have there is not a defined drainage channel. The Canna Gully systems is an interconnected systems that discharge both in the Kankashu River and in English Bayou. For this, you have also the backwater issues coming from the Kankashu River, and then also you have you have areas on the upstream part that have channel and structural capacity problems. The Antoine Gully areas is controlled by a pumping station on the downstream end that is on the south side of I-10 and discharging into the Kankashu River. In this system, the problems that you have come from some low areas that are on the upstream side of the system. So the proposed improvements that we have all the similar solutions that have been presented. So we propose to replace undersized culverts and upgrade the road crossings where you have capacity problems. And we have proposed also channel improvements and channel paving and channel cleaning and grubbing and also a regional detention basin. And we provide also the construction cost estimates for the capital improvement plan. I'm going through here, I think, the two solutions that are more or less representative. One of that is the English Bayou. In the English Bayou, we propose to have a concrete channel that are within the city of Iowa that goes from the parish lines going to the west limit of the city. And here is an enlargement of that picture where you have the channel footprint that shows where I think you might have some conflict with the house along the channel. And then for the Bayou Axine, we propose to have cleaning and grubbing of the channel all along of the main channel, about 4.2 miles. And then this is a summary of the proposed improvements on English Bayou. We have 3 alternatives that go from the concrete line channel to some cleaning and grubbing, and the cost estimate and so varied. You see here, I think, a detention pond estimate that is about $38 million. So it's something that is more in the future for the parish to look into about how to implement that. For the concrete line channel, will cost in the neighborhood about the $5 million, and the cleaning and grubbing, which has a very limited improvement, about $47,000. And then we have Antoine Gurley for cleaning and grubbing on the downstream side of the pump stations. And for Bayou Axine, that's what we have discussed. At the price tag is between $288,000 to $577,000. For Canna Gully, we have 2 alternatives that range from $2 million to $139,000. And Coon Gully, we have 3 alternatives with channel improvement of that lateral on CG2, and then also with proposed improvement to the pond, and as well as the cleaning and grubbing along lateral on CG1. That concludes my presentation.
If I could, just want to, like I said, kind of summarize some of this. We have a lot of big, thick engineering reports that are real hard to read, real hard to show on screens like this. We remind you that what it means is these guys have really thoroughly evaluated all the major laterals at this point in these basins and have given us the backbone to look at alternatives, try and decide what solutions we'd like to put in place, look for ways to fund it, and, look for solutions. And we'll be able to go back through this, sit down with you individually, however we need to do it, and put together a prioritized program at the end of all these basins. At this point, it's just a lot of thick binders with a lot of good engineering work in it. It's just really hard to present in a way that's very fun. So I apologize if there's any difficulty seeing these screens and slides and all the big numbers, but it's just really hard to get that in a manner that works very well for everyone. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wainwright. First, I'd have a motion to receive report.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Dr. Mackey.
Mr. Wainwright, I remember years ago we did a lot of work on Antoine Gully, and it seemed like to me the cost of fixing it was less than in the other areas. Was I
Yes.
in the presentation, which would indicate that we were what we did was helped a lot? Or?
I think so. I met today with the engineers on that, and we talked at length. That particular lateral you kind of got what you got, and it isn't that bad. To make it a whole lot better, you'd have to buy more pumps, and you'd have to do a whole lot of work. The recommendations that they had were actually quite minor in the big scheme of things. Some of the numbers we had, a few little congested areas here and there, but unless you were to go in and just really add a whole lot of pumping capacity, that system's working pretty well.
Well, I just felt good about the fact that we had done that, and it looked like it had helped quite a bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mackey. Any further discussion? Any objection? Motion to receive report carries. Thank you, sir. Item number 4, receive report from legal counsel with reference to parish occupational licensing under the category of door-to-door peddling. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe we were tasked by the police jury, Jimmy Vickers and myself, to investigate preparing some options for you all to consider on the peddling issue. So what I have prepared, and I think it's attached, every one of you has the options for anti-peddling ordinance. What I have prepared is sort of a series of options. If you wish to prohibit peddling in the parish at all, what you would do is you would consider accepting paragraph A that I have here for inclusion in our current ordinance. And that basically just says it's prohibited and it's a misdemeanor punishable by a fine. And also I would suggest that you would want to adopt with that paragraph B, which I'm going to call the Girl Scout cookie exception. And this would allow that kind of thing. Children who are selling tickets for their school things could come to your house and so on. In addition to governmental surveys, churches, and those kinds of things, which are generally accepted from this kind of a prohibition. Now, if you pass those two, then you have prohibited it except for the exceptions in B. What this is kind of an option. If you believe that the parish should continue to have some control over allowing limited house-to-house peddling, then what you would do is you would also adopt C. And I have said here, in the event of a proposed marketing initiative which would involve generally peddling, then in that event you could come to the parish and get a permit, which is currently in our ordinance now. You get an identification badge and they do a background check and all those things. So those are the things that I bring here for you tonight. My understanding is what we're not going to do is pass an ordinance tonight, but you all are going to discuss, and then when you all have decided what you wish to do, I will go back and draft a final ordinance based on what you all direct me to do, and then I would bring it back positioned in our current ordinance properly with what you want to do. Is that clear? I mean, am I making myself clear? We're not voting on an ordinance tonight. We're talking about what you all are going to tell me to go back and do.
Okay. At this time, I'll ask for a motion to receive report from legal counsel.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Before we begin discussion, I want to recognize Marshal Joey Alseed and Captain Poole from the Sheriff's Office, who are here to also, they may have some input on this and also answer any questions of jurors. Any discussion? Mr. McMillan.
Thank you. I think you've done an excellent job with legal counsel on A and B. That's I would like to see this jury, once we get it all ironed out, or maybe discuss it out, that we're basically doing away with the peddlers in the parish, but not hurting the kids any at all, or the churches or any other organizations out there raising money in a neighborhood. But I'm not for the peddlers door to door at all, and I think it's time that we put a moratorium on that in Calcasieu Parish. So with A and B is what I like, and that's just under discussion. I think that would work quite well in our parish. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. McMillan. Mr. Farnham.
How does this match up to the city of Lake Charles, the city of Salford? Does it pretty much match what they have?
We researched all of the ordinances of the incorporated areas in Calcasieu Parish, and the only one that has a prohibition is the city of Lake Charles. The others, in various forms, are pretty much like ours. If you want to do that, you come to us and you get a permit. So as of this point, Lake Charles is the only one that prohibits door-to-door solicitation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farnham. Mr. Spell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If it's appropriate, I'd like to just make a motion that we recommend staff pursue a draft ordinance considering options A and B.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor right now. We're in discussion.
Let's finish that one up.
After we finish that motion, we can entertain that. Do you have anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Stelly.
Alan, who, the recognized nonprofit organizations, who will recognize them as nonprofit organizations? Who makes that determination?
Well, that's a question that has several different answers. If I'm a law enforcement person and I'm out there and I see somebody that's doing this, I'm going to question who you are, and they will tell me I'm the such and such an organization. Now, nonprofit organizations, as you know, have to have a recognition from the Internal Revenue Service. I think it's called a 501c3. And those people should be able to prove that they are indeed, and if they are not, then they are prohibited. If they are not a bona fide, recognized organization, then the enforcement officer can say, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to do that. And get
So they will bring those credentials prior to, or is that something
they
they
ought
will
to have
carry
some-
on their person while they're doing that?
They should have some way to prove who they are when questioned. I don't mean that they have to carry around their IRS certification, but they need to have an identification of who we are, what we're doing, and I think the officer needs to be able to.
Yeah, that would be real easy to get around.
It would.
Very easy to get around. I see a lot of holes in that.
I didn't know how else to write it.
Yes, sir. And I understand. I'm not saying you did a great job, but it just, in my opinion, that would just open up a big opportunity for folks who are not really credentialed to do exactly what we're trying to stop them from doing. If we just had some better control.
Mr. Stelly, Captain Poole, I believe, has a comment to make on just that subject. If you come to the mic.
Yes, sir. That was one of the things that you made.
I'm sorry. Please state your name and address.
Oh, my name is Doug Poole, Calcasieu Parish Sheriff's Office, 5400 East Broad Street. It's real easy to just scan. Let's say he goes to the permit office and gets a one permit one time. He scans it. Now he's got changed the dates. He changes whatever he wants. I mean, as far as Girl Scouts and things of that nature, selling their cookies and whatnot, it's kind of law enforcement officer's discretion. Just like if you get stopped for a citation, you don't necessarily get a ticket. Okay, so we're not going to go out there looking for the Girl Scouts, looking for the church groups. It's the people from out of town. It's the people from Texas that come in that they're not licensed. They come in. Sometimes we catch them, sometimes we don't. But you're talking about, officers out in the field trying to catch these people. We get calls all the time from alarmed citizens that sometimes, they'll write a check, and then once these people leave, they think, oh, my God, I think I got took. We get those calls all the time. Sometimes we catch up with them, sometimes we don't. But
well, if we look at it from a different perspective, let's look at it for the safety side of the children. Instead of them going, or their parents taking them to individuals that they know and sell the cookies or whatever items they're going to.
Absolutely.
As opposed to someone dropping their children off on a corner and allowing them to walk in a neighborhood that they may not even know where they're walking. So this is kind of a two-edged sword.
Absolutely.
And that's the concern I have about the Part B. Not that we want to disallow these children to try to sell their goods and fundraisers and stuff like that, but I think we need to think about their safety as well as the privacy of the citizens.
And absolutely, and it's what they're selling.
Right.
If I come in contact with you and you're out, selling football cards, discount football cards like they've come to my door and sold, you know, well, obviously that's some student from the local high school trying to, for a fundraiser, but some of these people selling this glass cleaner, these tires, these stereo, you know, these people from out of state, they come in, like I said, sometimes we catch them, sometimes we don't. But, you know, I think, you know, something we need to look at before you start giving it just.
And I think the church organizations are more apt to have, sell dinners and things of that nature where people are going to go to them as opposed to someone going to their house. So I just can't support B. That's just my opinion. I think we need to stick with A, and I think it's going to be a lot safer for everyone who's involved. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, here again, if it's banned, then, you know, it's officer discretion. You know,
Right.
can cite you or not, just like a speeding ticket.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
Marshall, did you have something to add?
Marshall Joey Alseed, 800 Bilbo, Lake Charles. Mr. Stelly brings up an excellent point. When you start deviating, and you know, I know the knee-jerk reaction was, "Hey, Girl Scouts, let's leave them alone." We're not going to shut. That's not going to shut down Girl Scouts selling cookies by banning door-to-door sales. They'll do it at Walmart and different places, and you know, it's the overall safety. And, you know, these sex offenders, we talk about the sex offender registries and people that don't register. You know, how many people go and look, you know, at the map that's available to see what's in the neighborhood? And you go bring these kids and, you know, you got to look at the overall picture. You know, and like I said, the first response is, oh, we don't want to hurt the Girl Scouts. You're not really going to hurt them. And then when you have the city of Lake Charles that bans it, and see, we get calls and go out there and they say, oh, I didn't know this was city limits because it's maybe on the edge of the city limits. It's just good to have some uniformity, because by that time they've already, you know, cased your house. We had some months ago they were selling. This was, okay, guy comes up, I'm a college kid, I'm trying to, you know, make some money, and I'm selling these books. You don't get the books, they go to the soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. Boy, you want to wave your flag, you know. Went by Tony Mancuso's house and he bought some. Well, you said, hey, that didn't happen. You know, that's what the guy said. Started finding some holes in his story and shut them down and did some more research on this group. And I'm not saying that these people, but there were some people in this same organization that were charged with aggravated burglary, aggravated rape. So it is a safety issue. And you sometimes have to take a little strong stance. It may be a minor inconvenience to some people, but in the long run, prohibiting it is going to be the right thing. I'm glad Mr. Stelly brought that point up.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Andrepont.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Point of clarification, if we could. I want to make sure that we're not talking about the guy that sells fruits and vegetables out of the back of a pickup truck parked on some lot somewhere after he buys or purchases a license to do such. That's not door to door, and I just want to make sure that we're not talking about Dr. Mackey selling watermelons on a weekend when he's not pulling teeth.
That's correct. What you just said, that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. President Guidry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe this is for legal counsel. Maybe this is for Alan. Alan, I understand, and I know that it's become a problem and all, but I'm just kind of feeling for the guys that, the football players, the basketball players, the different high schools here in town that every year they sell tickets, they sell barbecue dinners and stuff. I mean, that's going to do away with that? I mean, that's a large part of their income for the entire year, to raise that type money for different types of things, for trophies and uniforms and those type things. I just have a problem with doing away with that, because that may be an only source of income for those kids and at school.
In answer to that, paragraph B pretty much comes out of the Lake Charles ordinance, but I added to it, students of private or public schools under the age of 18, considering just that kind of thing. And I added that language. You can put 19 if you want to, but I mean that specific language was intended to answer that. And again, Mr. Guidry, I took B from the Lake Charles City ordinance. They have these exceptions.
Right.
I'm not a proponent one way or the other. I'm just offering this as part of your menu of what you can do. Okay. Mr. Stelly recommends not put just, if you all want to adopt A, that's it. No peddling. And then what I hear the law enforcement people saying is, well, we're going to look the other way if it's Girl Scouts or children or high school football players or whatever.
And I mean, I don't feel they've got to go and get a permit. I mean, the kids are going to come to your house in their jerseys, and normally the people that know a lot of the kids here locally from sports and stuff, I mean, they're going to know that, but I hope that Mr. Stelly would just kind of reconsider, because that's a large part of those kids in school income. If you do away with that, you know, you're going to cut back on some of the benefits that those kids can have, Mr. Stelly, I would think.
You can pick and choose from B. Strike some, keep some, is an alternative to what Mr. Stelly offers. I mean, I'm just pointing that out. I'm by no means the final word on this thing.
You through?
I'm done.
Thank you. Mr. Stelly.
I think a very small percentage of the sales that these children are getting are coming from door to door of people that they don't know. They're going to people that they know who has bought tickets for years, who have helped fundraise for years. They're going back to those same people buying again from lists that they've compiled over the years. They're not going to lose one single sale from the fact that we're not allowing them to go door to door to people they have absolutely no idea who lives there or what lives there. It's not going to affect their sales one bit. It's going to, in the long run, it's going to be safety for them, and it's not going to affect their sales one bit. And that's, again, just my opinion. I'll stick with A.
Man, I'm just having a hard time, I guess, Mr. Stelly, seeing how exactly those kids are going to raise that money without having to go and solicit those people that are either alum or people that live in the community or that area, rather than those people actually go to that school or to whatever function they're given. And, you know, I think it's upon them to do that, because they're actually making themselves a little bit known in the community to those people that may not know them as well. To say, Mr. Jones, I'm David, I play with the LaGrange football team, I'm this year's running back. You know, we're selling dinners. We would ask for your support in some of the upcoming things that we have for this year. I just think in totally negating that, Mr. Stelly, you're taking something from those kids that may not have other means to get this money to do those things during the year. And that's only my concern.
Mr. Stelly.
You're putting them at risk when you do that. The marshal just said, and so did the gentleman from the sheriff's office, you're putting the children at risk by allowing them to go into neighborhoods that they don't know. By allowing them to do that, you're sending them to people who may be a pedophile, who may be a child molester, or that may be the same thing, I don't know. But anyway, you're putting them at risk by allowing them to do that. But they're going to go to people that have purchased before. Their lists are the same. They've compiled lists. If they haven't, they should have. And they're going to go back to the same people that have been supporting them for years. They're not going to lose anything from this. No one is going to lose a dime from this. No one. You're adding the safety factor. If you listen to the news every day, it's the safety factor by them not going into neighborhoods that they're not familiar with.
And if I may, Mr. Chair,
Go right ahead.
I guess, Mr. Stelly, and we could beat this all night, Tony, but I'm just concerned from
Then
the kids
vote
that
for
I
A
deal
and
with.
B. I'm not.
For the kids that I deal with, that they just have an opportunity to get benefits throughout the year.
Yeah,
By
I
cutting this
understand.
off, it's going to negate all of that. I mean, you're going to have kids wondering.
I understand.
You know, we've
If I
looked
may
forward for
reply,
this for every
Mr.
year
Chair,
to have this. So
You vote
I'm
for
just-
A and B. I'm not.
Well,
Okay,
And
we're
so-
going to move on. All right, Dr. Mackey.
It struck a chord with me with the children. When I was growing up, I went to my neighborhood. People knew who I was, whether they wanted to see me or not. They knew I was in the neighborhood. And so there was a safety factor there where you put young people in a neighborhood nobody knows. They don't know the person they're knocking on the door, or the person not receiving them doesn't know them. And I think that's an important factor. And I never even thought about any problems other than the fact that they may not want to see me knocking on their door again. But I knew them and they knew me. So I think there's a different thing now when kids go into a neighborhood and they don't have any idea whose door they're knocking on. Thank you.
Mr. Brame.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Mr. Stelly. The people that are selling these tickets, these football dinners and Girl Scout cookies and so forth, they're set up, like Joey said, at a Stein's, Walmart. They're going to set up someplace like that. I buy football barbecue dinners from schools. I buy them from churches. I buy them from Girl Scout cookies, but they always come to me. I think in this day and time, I don't think parents are comfortable with letting their kids just go and sell like we used to do 20 years ago, like my kids did. I don't think the kids today can do what they did. So B is something that I couldn't support either for that particular reason. That's just a safety issue. I don't think it's going to take away from any sales from any school selling barbecue dinners for a fundraiser for jerseys and football equipment, baseball equipment, or anything like that. But I do believe it's a safety issue. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Brame. Mr. Spell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just my personal opinion. I respect the viewpoint of my colleagues on this panel. However, it is my personal opinion the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury should not and should never be mom and dad. If parents are uncomfortable with their kids going into foreign neighborhoods, then parents should not allow their children to go in those neighborhoods. And at some point in time, there has to be personal accountability with parents or people that are responsible for these children, and for government to continually get involved in legislating parental responsibility, in my opinion, is a dangerous step forward. I think small steps are better than big steps. Options A and B do limit the activity to provide safety for our community while allowing children that are benefiting fundraising programs for their community to continue doing that without breaking the law. Looking the other way, that's all fine and dandy, but technically they are breaking the law if it's just option A. And we are putting children in a position to where we might be looking the other way, but they're breaking the law. What message are we sending then? So I would say I support option A and B. I understand the safety concerns. I have children. It's not that I have no concern for child safety, but as a parent, if my child wants to go in a neighborhood and sell something, I'm either going to be with them or make sure that their mother is with them or tell them, no, you're not allowed to do so. And that is my responsibility as a parent to supervise that child's activity. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm in support of A and B, and I would still request that after this discussion is finished, my original motion be entertained. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spell. Mr. Landry.
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. McMillan.
And my original second will stay the same. I would just like one of the things that Marshall said is uniformity. If we could be as close to the city of Lake Charles in the A and B that there's not a whole lot of difference in that, so that when the law enforcement officers go out there, they can enforce these with uniformity. That's what I would ask in that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. McMillan. President Guidry.
Thank you. And I guess this is going to be for Allen Legal Counsel. And I applaud Mr. Spell for that, and I thank you for those comments, Mr. Spell. I guess what I'm concerned about, Allen, what if you go to one of these places for a Walmart or a Stein's or Home Depot, and what if they don't have the days or whatever that these kids can go out and solicit whatever that they want to sell to whomever they want to sell it to? What if that becomes a problem? I mean, don't they have to go through these businesses, first of all, to get approval to be outside of that store or property?
Well, you all
I mean, you can't just send kids to a Walmart and don't notify anybody that those kids are coming. Am I correct in saying that?
You all passed an anti-solicitation ordinance back in '09, which was designed to stop panhandlers at street corners, but it included that same kind of activity on private property, and what you all have required is for those people to be on private property, they have to get the permission of the property owner, i.e. Walmart, Kmart. And so these people do apparently go in and they say, we'd like to set up a booth and sell cakes or sell tickets for high school, and that presumably they get permission to do so, and that's fine. That's
Okay.
well within your ordinance. This would not affect that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, President Guidry. Mr. Brame.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to respond on Mr. Spell, I don't think that I'm, my comments were trying to play parent. That's the last thing I'd want to do is try to play parent, especially on somebody else's children. I think as a part of a 15-member jury, I think it's our responsibility to protect our children and place this or not place this particular support B for that particular reason. So kids don't go down, and as Joey said again, going down the street that has sex offenders on it or whatever the case may be. I don't think we're playing. My point was wasn't trying to play parent, and I do think that every responsibility is the parents what their child does, how they sell their tickets, if they're going to let them go down the street or not. But I do think it's our responsibility as a jury to put a safety feature for our kids in place, and I think by voting on B, we're not doing that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second to receive report. Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Mr. Spell?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to withdraw my motion and entertain the motion separately to approve option A as a separate vote, which would be to move to recommend staff pursue a draft ordinance with option A, and then secondarily vote on a separate motion to add option B to that recommendation.
Second, that's my second, too. I'll go along with that.
You got to withdraw the second before you can make another.
I'll withdraw my second, and then I'll second that.
So the motion on the floor is first to recommend A, and then we're going to come back with another motion and vote on it separately on adding B.
B, yes.
Is everyone clear on that?
Mm-hmm.
Do we need
One motion on the floor for A.
motion on the floor is for A, and we have a second. Any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Mr. Spell?
I would move that we add option B to the recommendations provided to staff.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to add item B to the recommendation to the ordinance that staff will prepare. On this one, do we need to have a roll call?
Yes.
Yes.
Roll call vote?
Mr. Angelbach?
No.
Mr. Brame?
No.
Mr. Collins? Mr. Farnum?
No.
Mrs. Griffin? President Guidry?
Yes.
Mr. Landry?
No.
Dr. Mackey?
No.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes.
Mr. Scott is absent. Mr. Spell?
Yes?
Mr. Stelling?
No.
Mr. Sines?
No. I'm glad we have it.
The motion to add option B failed 7-3, 7 noes, 3
Okay, Mr. Smith, will that be on, or Brian, will that be on next week's?
Yes, I think Mr. Smith indicated
Agenda.
he can have a draft for the meeting next week.
We'll formally vote on it then. When would that go into effect?
Well, I think barring a date that you set, those go into effect as soon as they're passed.
What is that?
As soon as they're passed, unless you deem otherwise, it's in effect when you pass it. With communication, obviously, I think on this issue to proper law enforcement to make sure they know of it would be good, but
Present permit holders, Mr. Vickers, can they be notified?
Certainly.
I mean, I would imagine we have addresses, they can be notified.
We do.
Okay. Thank you. Item number 5, receive report from staff with reference to proposed changes related to the annual rabies clinics and further consideration of making a recommendation with reference to adopting a resolution amending said changes. Mr. Rainwright.
Thank you. We have provided you a sheet in your packet. I think it's item number 5 or page number 5. Every year, Parish puts on a set of rabies clinics, which is a good opportunity for the citizens to take advantage of low-cost rabies vaccinations for their animals. And ever since I've been here, quite honestly, I've always heard a lot of, for lack of a better term, complaints. Those clinics have sort of run with a minimum amount of staff the way we've done it, and a little disorganized and things like that. And we sat down with some of our staff this year and decided to try and come up with a new plan for the clinics and offer a better service if we could. With that, we've laid out a new program, which is a significant change, and I'd like the opportunity to explain it to you. With that, we would have time during this week to modify anything that you want, but some of the key changes would be to reduce from 17 sites down to 2, and the reason for that is we can't staff that level of clinics on one day. We use volunteers, we use our staff, but with that, we end up being very short. We feel like we can put all of our resources to one event on one day and do a much better job. We also, key in this change is the licensing fees that we would charge in trying to reflect some of the changes we made this past year in our ordinances, where we sort of put an incentive for altered animals. We would like to reflect that too. So there's a spot in here that basically we would charge $8 for an altered animal and $10 for a unaltered animal. We've been able this year to secure the Burton Coliseum for a date and Calcam Fairgrounds for a date. We would surely, we've attempted to try and get the West Cal Arena, which was our first option. It was just booked early on. So we would offer to do the best we can at the Calcam Fairgrounds for sort of provide 2 big sites where we could have a lot more people there on one day and try and create an event where we can have some educational aspects there. We've had a lot of discussion in the past couple of months over some of the ordinance changes. We'd like to have some educational things like there. We'd like to have some sponsors there, some of the local companies where it turns out to be a little bit more of an event if you do come to those and try and gather that pet community to these sites, try and build some relationships with them along the way. We also are negotiating to be able to include microchipping at a reduced rate at these sites, at these events, so that we can further, just get more animals chipped, and that has been a good thing throughout the parish. We're getting some opportunities to give some animals some free rides home. We're able to find their owners and things like that. So again, we've provided you with a sheet that I think lays out most of the changes, and with that, I'll take any questions, and throughout the week for next meeting, we would surely entertain anything that you'd like to ask us. So,
thank you, Mr. Wainwright. This time I'll entertain a motion to receive report.
Move. Second.
I have a motion and a second. We have a speaker on this also, Ms. Sally Shepard, representing the Animal Services Advisory Committee. Please state your name and address.
Sally Shepard, 2745 Princess Avenue, Lake Charles. And I'm going to tell you like it is because Alan's been real nice. You all went up on the fees that the veterinarians have to collect, and the veterinarians said, we're not going to volunteer. And that's why we didn't have the rabies clinics this year. So I know how Alan feels, that he doesn't want to put that finger on the veterinarians because they're trying to keep things on a smooth line. But you need to know that when you all decided to go up on the fees and make the veterinarians collect those fees, you hurt a lot of feelings. And so that's what happened. And you hurt a lot of people in the community. So I'm very pleased that Animal Control, Animal Services has come up with this, not really solution, but at least a compromise to do the 2 clinics that they're doing. But I don't think you all realize how many people we reach out to on that one day a year. Some of those people would not get a rabies shot if we didn't have those clinics. And they are extremely important for us to do in the entire parish. And every year when I work that clinic, I have worked every year for I don't know how many years. And we normally run out of vaccine before we run out of people. So, you know, we really are servicing a huge community there.
Wait just a second. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Landry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Shepherd, I mean, I'm very much aware, I can assure you. That department runs in the red all the time.
Oh, yeah.
There's no tax to support it, and there is not enough money coming in to cover the services that are being given. There's no choice but to come up. And I'm telling you, even with that increase, it probably would need to be double of that, just to begin to cover the expenses that go on out there. They do their best to try to keep those expenses under control and have had for years. It's an unfortunate situation. You know, if more people did alter their animals and didn't have them running loose and all those things, if people were better pet owners, the cost would go down quite a bit, but that's not the case. So they're doing the best that they can do with what they have, which, like I said, it's underfunded. So there was no choice except to go up in the fees. To my knowledge, the vets do not have to do that. I believe.
It's totally volunteer.
It is volunteer. I'm not talking about on the rabies day. I'm saying they do not. There's no one forcing them to give those rabies shots and to collect that money. They don't have to do that. They're doing that as a service to their customer. I've seen in most vet shops, there's a sign there that explains to them that's not, they are collecting the money for the animal control department of the parish. The money does not go to the veterinarian. In fact, I say everyone, most of the ones I've been into, there's a sign near the register that explains that. Everyone that's in the retail business has irate customers. That's just kind of how it goes. People don't want to, they don't want to pay. Well, if you don't want to pay, don't have the animal. So it's people that are paying or people that are using the system. If they didn't have an animal, they don't pay anything. You can't make it much fairer than that. Some people choose not to have an animal. It costs them nothing.
Right. But we don't really want the veterinarians not giving rabies shots.
No, of course we don't, but that's just a service to their customer. So their customer does not have to go out to the animal control department to get it done. But
their customers don't see it that way.
Well, I understand that. But that's how it is. That's just how it is. And I forgot now what the fee went up to. We're not talking about a whole lot of money. An animal is an expensive thing to have.
Oh, yeah.
From food and proper care and all that little bit that license went up to try to attempt to cover the cost of that department, to me, that's very minor in the overall cost of caring for an animal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion.
Thank you,
also,
Mr. Land.
I'm not through the whole.
I'm sorry.
That's on that. On the rest of it, as far as the clinics, I've been to a bunch of them. I volunteer my time. I enjoy doing it. But it's chaos. It just kind of is. You got a whole lot of people come through. It's fun. I enjoy it. But you're writing all these licenses up, and what happens after that day of chaos, it takes months for someone to come back and key all that information in the computer. So there's more problems with that than what appears at the surface. And to try to fix all of that and to get that information in the computer, we've decided, or we did in our meeting that we had, that it was going to be better. It's going to be a better event. Yes, it's going to be smaller. They're not going to be spread out as much, but they're going to be manned much better. It's going to be more organized, and that information is going to be keyed in the computer right then. So all that information is going to be there instead of it taking 3 or 4 months for that to get
Well,
there.
I think that's marvelous.
And another thing, you have all these volunteers, which that's great. You have all these different people that are writing these permits that don't do that on a daily basis. They're not getting all the information correct. You have all those different handwritings that are sometimes almost probably impossible to read. And I mean, you don't want to complain because they're volunteering. I mean, it's great that they're volunteering, but it's not perfect the way it is. Believe me, there are a lot of problems with it currently. So, and I think the things that have been proposed to change it from this time forward, I mean, I think it's all good, and I think it's going to be better. And it's more of an event. There's going to be a lot of things for people to do there while they're waiting, and actually we hope they're not going to have to wait near as long as they have in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. Mr. Brame.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Shepherd, can you give me some clarification on what the veterinarians are
Well, they've never
you
been,
said we heard a
right,
lot
they've
of
never been, the veterinarians as far as, you mean the fees that they collect? They've never really been happy about collecting the license fees. And then every time it goes up, then their clients, are seeing a bigger bill. And if you take, one dog in is not really, like you said, going to make much difference. But if your client has 5 or 6 dogs, then they do begin to see, a difference in their veterinary bill. And I know the vets explain to their clients, I'm doing this so that you don't have to go out to animal, services and pay that fee out there as a separate fee. But the people just see the veterinarians collecting that money, and that's what the veterinarians tell me is, their problem with it, is that they're doing your job. They're doing animal services' job by collecting that money and then getting it to them.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Shepherd.
Mr. Bean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to point out a couple of items. This is a direction that the department, and I know Alan has worked on it this is not brand new. This actually goes back, I don't know how many years, but it's been certainly in discussions, and I think Mr. Landry illustrated it, pointed out very well some of the problems with the current system. There are advantages to this in addition to that we don't have with the current, and it's actually 2 different days. Right now, if you happen to be out of town, you got that 1 shot on the rabies clinic. This actually expands it to 2 days instead of 1. You'll notice the fee is actually not just $10 across the board. There is a reduction to $8 for altered animals. This is consistent with the fee structure that you adopted for this year. They did go up, but there is a difference in altered and unaltered, and that's with the intent of getting our arms around this really big problem of pet overpopulation. So the spay-neuter focus, which you really have to do if you're going to attack this, is important. So with the fee structure you have for the whole year, and you have this with the clinics, it's consistent. So it's actually a reduction in the fee for a lot of the people who do this. So there are added benefits to this method, but this is not something that just came completely out of the blue over the last few months, and it's actually a good direction. We're going to learn from these 2 setups, and there'll be improvements, but it's going to be a much better, much organized system than we have now that is frankly very spread out, and we don't have the resources to do them all well. And very important, I think, that you set a reputation for when you provide a service. This jury has done it in a way that is very professional. We want to be able to maintain that. It's too hard to do it with 17 clinics spread out all over the parish for a limited period. So this is something we're asking you as a committee to approve a recommendation of for the full jury if you're so inclined tonight.
May I ask how you're going to tell if a bitch is spayed? Dogs are a little bit easier.
Well, I'll ask Alan if he wants to address it.
You can have that one. We are going to have vets on hand, as many as we can, and we have vets that are there. And while I am certainly not educated to answer that question, I hope that they're having to do it any other time, so I'm assuming that they're going to know how to do it. But with that, I would have to get you a more professional answer if you need it.
Thank you, Mr. Wainwright. Mr. Stelling.
Does that rabies shot have to be administered by a veterinarian?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would think.
It does. So you can go to the feed store and buy medicine to vaccinate your animals on the farm, but you can't vaccinate your dog
For rabies.
for rabies? That's right?
It's just the rabies vaccination. That's my understanding, Mr. Stelly. Like I said, we can give you more clarification during this week, but yeah, you have to have a vet do that.
Just to kind of tell you, another little situation where a service is rendered without really any profit is a state inspection on a vehicle. Station doesn't make any money. But the whole idea is to kind of build a rapport with your customers when they go there. So I think the vets could use that for the same reason. It builds a relationship with a customer. So just that was just
Might
an
be
example.
interesting to have a couple of veterinarians visit with you all one night. But I mean, Animal Services is certainly doing the best job they can with what they've got. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. And I'm hoping that we see the greatest turnout we've ever had in those two clinics. And I'm ecstatic that we're having the two clinics, because my fear was originally when the April one was canceled that we might not have a rabies clinic this year. So I'm really pleased that they've gone through this and have, come up with these two dates, and they're nice facilities to have them in. So I'm hoping we see the same great numbers that we've seen in the past.
Thank you. Mr. Still.
Yeah, I don't think it's a real bad idea to consolidate all this stuff, Alan, but I do see that there could be a potential problem with the geography.
Yes,
The older folks with animals and, having to, even some that don't drive, the problem with getting them to the clinics that are further away. Maybe instead of from 17 to 2, maybe we could slowly reduce it, maybe by adding some a little bit further east or north or whatever, making such a drastic change so quick as opposed to just gradually. But again, that's just a suggestion, just maybe something we could think about. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any further discussion?
Is motioned on the floor to recommend proposed changes? That's
Right
what's
now, we have
actually-
just a motion to receive report.
Okay,
That's
we're
what we.
seeking actual,
I would-
seeking proposed changes if you want to vote on that as a
Is that your motion?
recommendation.
That was your motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion for that.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to make the recommendation of staff. Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Number 6, consideration of making a recommendation with reference to adopting an ordinance amending applicable sections of the Code of Ordinances of Calcasieu Parish, Louisiana, with reference to animal and fowl, to provide additional definitions and to establish a section prohibiting the peddling of dogs and cats as recommended by Animal Services Advisory Committee and staff. Mr. Rainwright.
Thank you. A couple points on this, and then I'll open up for questions. Back in 2009, I think it was May of 2009, we basically rewrote all the parish ordinances for animal services in a comprehensive way. Well, with that, we've surely found a few housekeeping items, I would call it, that in using those now for a year, that we would like to get some changes made, some things we've learned in that time, and I'll kind of just briefly go through them for you. And then at the end, there is one that is actually brand new, and that it's slightly different, and I'll explain that. First one is really some definition that are pretty subtle to confinement devices. You have it in front of you. Basically, some of those electronic fences that we are allowing in our ordinance to maintain animals that are basically invisible. Some work better than others, and we need the ability for our director to assess that. And working with Mr. Smith, we've basically adding one word, effective, into that definition. We feel like we'll be able to handle the situations we've seen so far, so that's relatively minor. Second thing is the nuisance animal change, and it's kind of a unique story. We're dealing with a couple sites where we knew some property damage was going on. In fact, we've witnessed it. We've got pictures of it, but we only have one witness statement. In our current ordinance, from years ago, we changed the need to require 2 witness statements for a nuisance from at least 2 homeowners not in the same household. The problem we ran into there was that we had 1 witness statement, and we have our director that has seen it, but that wasn't good enough to satisfy the ordinance. I feel like that was not the intent. It was just kind of a matter of, we left out a and/or statement in the ordinance. The 2 witness statements works very well in a lot of cases because we end up in a lot of neighborhood disputes, and oftentimes you need that 2 witness clause to stay out of that dispute. You at least have to have 2 people there complaining for it's a problem, because many times we can't witness the nuisance going on or any property damage going on. It's really just a neighborhood dispute. But there are times when we can figure out what's going on through investigation, and we really would like to not be held to that 2 witness statement standard in that case. And that's what that change, that's everything that's in that change. It's for the nuisance item. The third one, which is item 549, is one that we felt like we've maybe overdone it in the original ordinance. And what it is about is when an animal is at large. For the second offense, required mandatory spayed and neuter, which it's good in that those animals that are running large are creating the unwanted litters. Y'all understand that. As we worked through a couple cases this year, and we had to enforce that, felt like, well, let's go back and look at that and see if we can alter some, you can give a little backup from that a little bit. So what we're offering is to limit that to 2 at-larges in a 1-year period, so that there is some threshold. I mean, you're going to have an animal for 8 to 10 years, maybe at least, and that's a pretty stiff at-large penalty over that long of a term. So we would like to put a limit on it. Of course, it's open for debate. Also in this ordinance, we run across a couple people who really wanted to keep their animal intact and had some justifiable reasons. So with that, we're offering a solution that we sort of researched other communities and tried to see what they were doing to get around that. And we're basically offering a fee for $300 where, sort of to maintain your animal intact. And what that does is just essentially puts a real premium on you keeping your animal intact, but really, enforcing, hey, keep it in your pen, keep it on your site, keep it, properly contained. So that's the intent behind those changes that are changes essentially to existing ordinances. The last item is a new item. And with all the peddling things y'all have talked about today, I'm almost scared to bring this one up. But one of the issues we've dealt with, and we did not attempt to address this in the previous versions of the ordinance, was the selling of litters and puppies and things in the parking lots. And what I would think I would be better to let Ms. Rita explain the situation that happens there, but a lot of those, when you're walking your kid to the grocery store or something, and they got a litter of puppies or kittens on the tailgate, I usually end up with one. I don't know about y'all. Maybe y'all don't have the same problem I have, but it puts a pretty good burden on the person going into the store, and a lot of those animals end up right back at our shelter is the reality. It is sort of a spontaneous purchase. A lot of times they're free even. It's not about the money. It just, they end up back at our shelter. It creates an avenue for a lot more unwanted litters that we end up dealing with. And I just, kind of remind you the 10,000 animals a year that we nearly have to put down or euthanize. Every time we can look for a way to reduce that number, we would surely do that. So that's the basis for those. And surely Ms. Rita's here. She can explain to you more in detail with her knowledge of some of the reasons behind it. But at that, I'll accept any questions.
Okay, we need a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second.
All right, discussion. Mr. Farnham.
When a dog gets picked up and brought in for the second offense, what does it cost to have them spayed or neutered?
I'll ask Rita to come to the mic if she can. That surgery is done at their vet. So I'm not sure I know the answer to that, but we offer a low-cost spay and neuter coupons. Some of those, the jury actually provides some funding for some of that, and/or you can take it to your vet. And
I guess what I'm getting at is it'll cost them $300 to circumvent that process. What does it cost if it actually does take place?
The actual, are you asking about the spay-neuter cost?
Yeah.
Okay. It varies veterinarian to veterinarian, but roughly $60 to $80.
Okay. So if it gets caught, picked up, and it's imposed on them that they go have that done, then they get to bring it to the veterinarian of their choice to have it done? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Mr. McMillan?
Thank you.
Privilege?
Personal privilege. I'd just like to say that last year about this time I had an opportunity to start a tradition that I understand is going to be carried on by our president. I'd like to invite y'all all out at 7 o'clock tomorrow night as the Pirates at Contraband Days take over the Imperial Calcasieu Parish. Kevin's going to walk the plank. Now, I'm really concerned that does he know how to swim? And will he have a life jacket, and will he dog paddle? Will he make us proud? Kevin, I know you will. We're thrilled that you're going to be walking the plank on behalf of the jury, and I'd just like to make sure that the folks understand how important this is, that we go out to support our president as he walks the plank tomorrow night.
I appreciate that, Mr. McMillan.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry.
Mr.
Thank
Spell.
you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. President, please spring off with the other foot. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. At this
Good
time,
to
I'll
know.
entertain a
Yeah.
motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Jeez.
We're adjourned.
We'll now call the Agenda Committee to order for Thursday, April 29, 2010. The purpose of today's committee meeting is to formulate an agenda for the regular meeting of the police jury on May 6, 2010. The proposed agenda follows. I need a motion to pull items 27
Second.
to 33. A motion to second to pull items 27 through 33. And before we adjourn the committee meeting this afternoon, I'm going to afford myself a point of personal privilege for just a minute or two. I would recommend that since Mrs. Trimmy is not here, 27 and 28, she's a liaison to these two issues, and I would move that we defer till next week. That's my recommendation. I would need a motion to do that.
moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to defer 27 and 28 until the 6th of May. Also, item 33, likewise, Mr. Collins is the liaison, and he is not here. I would request to move
So moved. Second.
for action. We have a motion and a second, so 27, 28, and 33 are deferred until May the 6th. 29, take appropriate action to fill a vacancy created by the resignation of Mr. Dwayne E. Chapman as a member of the Board of
To defer
Commissioners.
for 30 days.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Stetler to defer for 30 days, second by Mr. Spell. Do we have any objections, any discussion? So ordered. Number 30, take appropriate action to fill a vacancy created by the resignation of Mr. L.E. Nix as member of the Board of
Move to
Commissioners,
appoint
Ward
Mr. Kip
4.
Coltrane.
Second.
Mr. Hassan recommends that Mr. Kip Coltrane be appointed. We have a second by Dr. Mackey. Any objection, any discussion? So ordered. Item 31, take appropriate action to fill a vacancy created by the resignation of Ms. Nell Jean Miller as a member
Move
of
to
the Board of
appoint
Commissioners.
Karen Nealons.
We have a motion by Mr. Stelly to appoint Mrs. Carrie Needland. We have a second by Mr. Farnham. Any discussion? Any objection? So ordered. 32, take appropriate action on the expiration of the term of
Move to
Mr. Mike
reappoint
Dortez.
Mr. Dortez.
We have a motion on the floor by Mr. Stelly. Close. Y'all sit next to each other. To reappoint Mr. Dortez. Any discussion? Mr. Guidry second the motion. Any opposition? Motion carries. And before we adjourn, Mr.
I need to, if you don't mind, go back for just on 29. I don't actually represent, Mr. Chapman is District 4, which Mr. Sias is the juror for that district.
Well, what's your
Well, I mean, I
pleasure?
still want to defer, but I mean, it needs to be
Okay,
changed on the
all right.
agenda.
Good. That's a staff.
It does say that he represents District 4.
But I'm not District 4. You have me as the liaison,
Mr. Chapman is your appointment, or Mr. Sias?
Mr. Sias.
That's why it reads that he represents District 4. Mr. Sias is District.
You're just
You're the liaison.
Okay.
You're the liaison.
I'm sorry. I apologize. My mistake.
Been a long day,
Getting
Tony?
too technical, Tony.
Kind of.
How about a generator?
But I did win a while ago.
Yeah, you did. Very good.
Mr. Stell and Mr. Gidner. And Mr.
You know what?
Mr. Stelly, it's not final.
We're going to let that go.
Did you have to ruin my night?
Yeah.
Let's get back to the order
Don't
of
let that
business.
go.
We want to remind Calcasieu Parish residents of the 2 police jury propositions on the ballot for this Saturday, May the 1st, for the courthouse and jail maintenance, as well as the road maintenance and garbage collection tax. Both of these propositions are for existing taxes, and the passage of the proposition will ensure that these core parish services can be continued. And you can visit our website at cppj.net for more information. Any further comments? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mr. Brain.
Same thing.
Same thing. Motion is, meeting is adjourned.